At 6:58 a.m. this morning, Donald Trump posted on social media that he is, quote, giving serious consideration to changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America. That is, of course, a lie. Donald Trump doesn't know how to give serious consideration to anything. And 3 hours later, the man who launched what the Wall Street Journal is calling the dumbest trade war in history posted the dumbest map of our northern border that anyone working in the American government has ever used. To which Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell replied, let's just call it Lake Natalie, so we know you'll start protecting our Great Lakes. It is Natalie Harp's job in the White House to help Donald Trump post what functions now as maps, like this one right here. This is a map of Donald Trump's mental decline. That's what it actually maps. It's like the one that she no doubt, Natalie Harp, this is her work, no doubt, helping Donald Trump with this kind of thing today. That's what the American taxpayer is paying Natalie Harp for. Natalie Harp has been trying to help Donald Trump tweet his way to victory in the war that he started in Iran. But the racist posts that she helps Donald Trump put out about the Obamas and the other madness she helps Donald Trump put out on social media isn't winning his war in Iran. Natalie Harp is surely busy helping Donald Trump post deranged images of himself as a member of the United States military, a commander, like this sheer madness posted by Donald Trump with Natalie Harp's help. Amazingly enough, that post of Donald Trump pretending to be a general was posted on August 4th. And Iran still hasn't surrendered. 21 days later, I mean, look at how scary Donald Trump looks standing there with Douglas MacArthur and George Patton, two of the most famous generals of World War II, each of whom have been the subjects of Hollywood movies. And maybe when Hollywood gets around to making a worshipful movie about General Trump, Iran will finally surrender. Look at that image. And imagine how small the brains have to be, how tiny the brains have to be of the people, the two people who put those tiny brains together, Donald Trump and Natalie Harp, to post madness like that. Imagine how small those Natalie Harp and Donald Trump brains are when they're collaborating on how to scare Iran today on social media. In their best-selling book, Regime Change, Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan reported that Vice President James David Vance advised Donald Trump against starting a war with Iran. On page 402, they report, quote, but with the exception of the vice president, nobody on the senior team, not his Secretary of State, not his chairman of the Joint Chiefs, not his chief of staff, had made a real effort to talk him out of it. On the next page, they have this account of the final meeting about going to war in Iran. On Thursday, February 26th, around 5 p.m., the final go, no-go meeting got underway in the Situation Room. By now, the positions of everyone in the room had crystallized. Everything had been discussed in prior meetings. Everyone knew everyone else's stance. The president was the president, and they would back his decision. There were no presentations, no paperwork, just a discussion that would last an hour and a half. The war planning group had been kept so tight that the two key officials who would need to manage the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Energy Secretary Chris Wright, were still not in the loop one day before the launch of the war, nor was the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. The Director of National Intelligence wasn't even in the room for the final go, no-go meeting. Today, the Wall Street Journal is reporting this about Tulsi Gabbard. Days before going to war with Iran in February, President Trump summoned his intelligence chief to the Oval Office to ask whether a full-on assault was a good idea. Then Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, outlined assessments from America's intelligence apparatus, according to people familiar with the meeting. She told Trump that killing Iran's supreme leader would likely usher in a more hardline regime open to acquiring nuclear weapons. Tehran would rush to close the Strait of Hormuz, destabilizing the global energy market, and it would strike U.S. forces and partners in the Middle East, prompting questions about American resolve and reliability with allies. And so Donald Trump was warned. And Donald Trump alone made the decision to go to war. Today's Wall Street Journal report includes Donald Trump's reaction to Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. Quote, several leaders from Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia and Qatar, contacted the White House seeking an end to the fighting and a face-saving diplomatic solution for all involved. Republicans also called Trump, telling him the war was hurting the party's prospects in the November midterms. Trump privately fumed at the backlash, officials said. He queried aides about why Iran wasn't backing down amid the unrelenting bombing campaign. On June 17 came the breakthrough, an interim peace agreement to reopen the strait, paving the way for 60 days of nuclear talks. Asked by confidants why Trump went for a temporary deal, the president pointed to new internal White House polling. Nearly 80% of Americans wanted an agreement to end the conflict, no matter its contents. And so, as we suggested on this program at the time, Donald Trump accepted that memorandum of understanding with Iran because his war was polling very badly. And it still is. New polling shows that 62% disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling his war in Iran. 65% say that the United States should make a deal to end the war as soon as possible. And 57% think Donald Trump was wrong in his decision to go to war with Iran. Donald Trump and his absurdly incompetent Treasury Secretary have for days now been threatening a so-called economic D-Day attack launched against Iran. The threat, which Donald Trump absolutely will not carry out, is for the United States to shut down all economic activity with any country that in any way does business with Iran. Scott Bessent is threatening to ban any country from using the American banking system in any way if they do business with Iran. Scott Bessent himself, in trying to sound threatening to Iran, described what he was talking about as, quote, blowing up the global financial system, end quote. That's his threat to Iran. And so we now have Scott Bessent acting like a worldwide economic terrorist in the Treasury Department, who says that his plan to defeat Iran is to blow up the global financial system. The reason that did not sound threatening to Iran is that even though Scott Bessent described his threat as blowing up the global financial system, he said very, very clearly that he's not going to do that.
You described this as an economic D-Day, but D-Day wasn't a threat of an invasion, and the U.S. didn't give a timeline to Germany. So why not impose the sanctions today?
Well, we are giving everyone the opportunity to remedy bad behavior. Why would I want to blow up the global financial system?
Yeah, good question, Scott. And the answer is you will not dare. And Donald Trump will once again back down from a Donald Trump threat. Donald Trump will not dare to blow up the global financial system because Donald Trump will also blow up the economy of the United States while he's at it. And everyone in the world knows that, very much including China. China is the largest buyer of Iran's oil, and China will continue to be the largest buyer of Iran's oil, no matter what Donald Trump and his clownish Treasury Secretary say. In Donald Trump's hopeless attempt to divert attention from his war in Iran, he has invited Chinese President Xi to the White House next month. And now all the questions about that visit are going to be about Iran, because today China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson said, quote, China is firmly against sanctions that have no basis in international law or UN Security Council mandate. Economic warfare and maximum pressure provide no solution. They only serve to fuel tensions, disrupt global economic and financial order, and hurt everyone else's interests. Dialogue and negotiation is the only right way forward. China's cooperation with Iran complies with international law. We are closely following the situation and will do everything necessary to protect China's rights and interests. And so you can be sure China will continue to pay Iran for its oil, and Donald Trump will not be able to do anything about that. The most striking response to Scott Bessent's childish threat came from the Speaker of Iran's parliament, who taught Natalie Harp and Donald Trump a thing or two today about devastatingly effective social media posting, exhibiting a fluency in American culture that no one in the Trump White House has with Iranian culture. The Speaker of Iran's parliament actually tweeted this. Him, economic D-Day, also him, 5 seconds later, LOL. Why would I want to blow up the global financial system? Sir, this ain't Normandy. This is improv night, and you forgot your own script.